Welcome the Lord's chosen. When destiny upgrades your position, explanations become unnecessary, just performance. Chosen ones, this isn't your glow-up era. This is your takeover season. You've spent too long apologizing for the very thing you were designed to dominate with. You've downplayed brilliance, edited your truth, and dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel exposed. But here's the reality. When God hardwired greatness into your DNA, He didn't install an apology button. Fact. Psychologists have found that people with a strong sense of purpose trigger the same neurological responses as those experiencing euphoria, meaning walking in your calling literally rewires your brain for power. So when they say you've changed, they're right. You've become chemically incompatible with mediocrity. You were built for this life, not the filtered one they pretend to live online, but the kind that demands pressure, precision, and purpose. You didn't survive all those silent wars just to sit politely at tables you were meant to redesign. You're not a guest here. You're the blueprint, the architect, the system update they didn't know they needed but can't function without. And let's be honest, the way you're taking over isn't even aggressive. You're just existing loudly in a world that was used to your silence. You're not power hungry. You're purpose hungry. And when purpose eats, fear starves. So no more "I'm sorry for being too much." No more "I didn't mean to outshine." You did. Mean to, because this was never about being liked. It was about being legendary. This is your time, your territory, your takeover, and you owe no one an explanation for it. Number one, you were never competing. You were confirming. You were never in competition with anyone. That was the illusion the world sold you. The chosen ones don't fight to prove worth. They move to confirm what's already theirs. While others are chasing trophies, you're simply stepping into timelines that were designed with your name on them. Every time you rise, it's not proof of superiority. It's evidence of prophecy unfolding. That's why envy surrounds your success. Not because you're doing too much, but because your elevation feels effortless. They're measuring effort. You're manifesting alignment. Competition is what happens when people operate without clarity. They fight for visibility because they don't know identity. But you've always known deep down that you were meant to stand out, not to stand against. You're not on the racetrack with them. You're on your own route, and that frustrates those who expected you to follow their map. The truth is, they can't understand how you're winning without the usual formula. No crowd, no applause, no validation, just quiet precision. But that's because your lane was never public property. When you stopped trying to compete, life started to align. Doors opened because your energy stopped begging and started belonging. You moved from trying to prove to showing what's true. That's the shift that terrifies people. When you no longer chase approval but command it through authenticity, you're not outpacing them, you're outgrowing them. The more you evolve, the less you even see them in your rear view, not because you're arrogant, but because you've realized comparison is the thief of clarity. Every move you make now is confirmation that what you prayed for wasn't fantasy. It was foresight. You're not proving your value to the world. You're proving the world wrong about its version of value. Your journey isn't about being first or being best. It's about being aligned. And when alignment happens, victory is no longer something you chase. It's something that naturally finds you. Number two, you're the disruption they prayed would never come. You didn't just arrive. You interrupted patterns. Your existence alone exposed everything that was pretending to work. People had built entire comfort zones on lies, habits, and hierarchies that depended on everyone staying asleep. Then you showed up fully awake, asking the questions they avoided and living with a boldness they tried to label as arrogance. You became the reminder that comfort is not the same as peace, and silence is not the same as wisdom. You are the disruption they feared because your presence forced accountability in spaces that wrapped complacency. They never hated you. They hated what you revealed. Your growth unsettled the structure. The same people who once cheered for your potential panicked when that potential turned into power. They didn't mind you dreaming as long as you stayed manageable. But the moment you stopped waiting for approval and started acting from purpose, you became a threat to every system built on control. You're not rebellious, you're reformational. You don't destroy for attention, you disrupt for correction. Disruption doesn't mean chaos. It means evolution. When light enters a room that's used to darkness, it looks offensive. At first, but eventually, it becomes the new standard. That's what your presence does. It forces others to evolve or expose themselves as unwilling. And here's the irony. Many of them prayed for change, but when it arrived through you, they resisted it because it didn't look convenient. You were the answer they weren't ready to receive. Your role isn't to fit in. It's to redefine what normal looks like. You carry an energy that shifts culture, challenges tradition, and unsettles false authority. That's not pride. That's purpose. You weren't sent to maintain the system. You were sent to upgrade it. And the discomfort you cause is proof that the world was long overdue for your arrival. You're not the storm. You're the reset that comes after it. Number 3, you were built in silence, so your presence could be thunder. While others were busy being seen, you were being shaped. Your development didn't happen under lights or applause. It happened in the quiet, uncomfortable places where one was clapping and no one understood. That silence wasn't punishment. It was construction. It was where you learned to rely on discernment instead of direction, faith instead of feedback. The chosen ones don't get the luxury of being noticed early. They get the privilege of being refined privately, so that when they finally appear, their impact speaks before they do. People often mistake silence for inactivity, but they never realize that real power grows out of sight. You weren't absent. You were incubating. Every delay was a layer of strength. Every hidden season was God stretching your capacity. So when your time came, your presence didn't just enter the room, it shifted it. That's why when you move now, it feels like thunder. You didn't make noise for attention. You became the sound of fulfillment. The world has grown used to loud ambition and shallow confidence. That's why your quiet rise confuses people. You're not chasing clout. You're carrying command. You don't talk about what you'll do. You just do it. And the results echo louder than any announcement could. Those who underestimated your silence are now struggling to process your volume. Because when something has been built in private with patience, wisdom, and resilience, it doesn't need an introduction. It needs space. You are living proof that unseen seasons are not wasted seasons. They're divine training grounds. You learned in the shadows what others will have to learn under pressure. And that's why your success doesn't shake you. It fits you. You didn't stumble into this. You were sculpted for it. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. And now the thunder they hear isn't noise. It's the sound of purpose finally taking its rightful place. Number 4, leadership isn't permission, it's possession. Real leadership doesn't start when people vote for you. It starts when life anoints you. You don't lead because they chose you. You lead because destiny already marked you. True authority doesn't come from titles, approval, or hierarchy. It comes from ownership. You don't need permission to step into what's yours. You only need to recognize that you've already been carrying what others are still trying to qualify for. Leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about being in alignment with what you were born to do. The reason you lead differently is because you never had the luxury of being told you were ready. You learned on the move. You didn't climb ladders. You built them. Every mistake taught you stewardship. Every setback taught you strategy. And every rejection taught you resilience. That's why your authority doesn't sound like pride. It sounds like peace. Because when you truly possess something, you don't have to prove it. It simply flows through you. People who misunderstand purpose think leadership is granted by consensus, but chosen ones know. Leadership is claimed through obedience. When you follow your calling long enough, you automatically rise to the top of environments that once tried to silence you. The same people who ignored your voice eventually start echoing your words. That's not coincidence. That's possession. It's what happens when you move from waiting for approval to walking in divine assignment. You were never meant to ask, "Am I ready?" You were meant to realize you already are. The world will always hesitate to crown someone who refuses to conform. But that's exactly what makes you qualified. You don't lead to be followed. You lead to awaken others. And when destiny claims you, you can't go back to being ordinary because you're not holding leadership anymore. Leadership is holding you. Number 5, the spotlight isn't a reward. It's an obligation. Being seen was never about vanity. It was about responsibility. You weren't designed to stay small just to make others comfortable. The spotlight isn't something you earn after proving yourself. It's something you step into because your purpose demands it. You don't chase visibility to feed your ego. You embrace it to fulfill your assignment. The world can't benefit from what you hide, and your silence doesn't make you holy. It makes you unavailable to the very people you were sent to impact. Chosen ones often confuse humility with invisibility. They think staying quiet protects their purity, but in truth, it restricts their purpose. You can't inspire from the shadows. Playing small doesn't honor God. It insults the greatness He placed in you. When you were given gifts, it wasn't just to feel special. It was to serve as a solution. That means being seen isn't a luxury. It's a requirement. Visibility is how your calling finds its audience. The spotlight was never meant to glorify you. It was meant to amplify the message that flows through you. You're not standing there to be admired. You're standing there to awaken others. You're the evidence that obedience leads to influence. And influence, when used correctly, doesn't inflate pride. It ignites purpose. The light is not yours to hide under comfort or fear. It's yours to carry even when it burns. There will always be people who misinterpret your confidence as arrogance, but that's because they've never seen conviction lived out loud. Don't apologize for your visibility. Steward it. You're not trying to be famous. You're trying to be faithful. The spotlight doesn't mean you've arrived. It means you've accepted your assignment. And when the chosen ones finally step forward, the world doesn't just see them. It sees what obedience looks like when it refuses to stay hidden. Number 6, you were built with a different material. There's a reason you don't collapse when life gets heavy. You aren't shaped in comfort. You were forged in fire. While others were being molded by convenience, you were being strengthened by conflict. Every storm that tried to break you only revealed what you were truly made of. You didn't become strong by choice. You became strong by necessity. Pain didn't destroy you. It refined you until what was left wasn't weakness, but endurance. The chosen ones are built differently because their blueprint includes resistance. You learned early that not everyone could carry what you carry. And that's not arrogance. It's awareness. Pressure exposes composition. When life squeezed others, they cracked because they were made of what felt good, not what could last. But you were constructed from lessons, loss, and persistence. That's why your silence is steady, and your presence unshakable. You've survived things that don't make sense to anyone else, and yet you keep moving with grace. What others call too much is simply the weight you were designed to handle. You don't crumble under criticism or rejection because you stop needing applause to stay motivated. Your resilience comes from experience, not encouragement. The same fires that made them fearful taught you focus. You've endured isolation, betrayal, and pressure that would have dismantled most people, yet you came out more grounded, more certain, more aware of who you are. You were never fragile. You were foundational. That's why people rely on your strength but rarely understand it. They see the calm but not the construction. They don't know how many versions of you had to fall apart so that this one could stand firm. You weren't built to fit in. You were built to withstand. And when life tests your structure again, remember this. What breaks others only reminds you of the quality of your design. Number 7, you're not rising, you're remembering. What feels like elevation to others feels like recognition to you. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to who you've always been beneath the noise, doubt, and conditioning. The chosen ones don't discover greatness. They remember it. That's why certain breakthroughs feel less like surprise and more like confirmation. It's not pride, it's déjà vu. Your soul has walked this road before, and every step you take now is simply catching up to what's already been written about you. You were born with a knowing that never fit into logic. You've always sensed there was more. Not because you were chasing superiority, but because you could feel the misalignment of playing small. The world tried to convince you that confidence was arrogance and that humility meant hiding. But remembering who you are isn't arrogance. It's awakening. You're not inflating your worth. You're finally refusing to understate it. Every time life stripped something away, it wasn't robbing you. It was revealing you. Each setback removed another layer of illusion until what remained was pure identity. That's why you can now move with quiet certainty instead of loud ambition. You're not trying to prove anymore. You're walking in remembrance. When others see progress, you see return. And that's the difference between the chosen and the conditioned. The chosen don't climb ladders. They reclaim levels. Every door that opens feels oddly familiar because your spirit already owned the room long before your feet got there. That's why your peace deepens even as your influence grows. You're not intimidated by success because it doesn't feel foreign. It feels like home. You're not rising. You're remembering. You're recalling the strength, wisdom, and authority that was always part of your design. And once remembrance turns into awareness, there's no going back to pretending you're ordinary. The world calls it evolution. Heaven calls it recognition. Number 8, every attack was a curriculum. You didn't just go through pain, you learned from it. Every attack, every betrayal, every misunderstanding became a lesson that shaped your mastery. While others were busy complaining about what went wrong, you were quietly collecting data. You were studying human behavior, patterns, intentions, and energy. You were learning what words couldn't teach, how to see through deception, how to protect peace, how to rebuild without bitterness. You didn't just survive storms. You studied them until you understood how to walk through rain without drowning. That's why your perspective is different now. You don't panic when conflict comes. You analyze it. You've seen enough to know that every opposition carries information. Every rejection revealed who was never meant to stand beside you. Every betrayal exposed where your boundaries needed reinforcement. Life was never punishing you. It was training you to lead from a place of wisdom instead of wounds. You graduated without a ceremony because your growth happened in private. The chosen ones are never taught through comfort. They're taught through combat. You learned that loyalty isn't proven by words, that discernment is more valuable than charisma, and that solitude isn't loneliness, it's strategy. Each battle reshaped your mindset, refined your focus, and rewired your instincts. You can sense manipulation before it's spoken and see red flags in smiles that used to fool you. That's not paranoia. That's experience turned intelligence. And now what once hurt you has become your manual for leadership. You're not bitter. You're built. You understand timing, temperament, and truth in ways that can't be learned in peace. You've earned a kind of wisdom that textbooks can't offer. The kind that comes from surviving what was meant to silence you. Every attack was a teacher, and every scar is a certification. You didn't just make it out, you mastered it. Number 9, they can't cancel a covenant. You were never built on popularity. You were built on promise. That's why no matter how hard they try to erase you, something always brings your name back into the atmosphere. You're not here because of luck or strategy. You're here because of covenant, a divine agreement written long before you had the language to describe it. What's rooted in purpose can't be uprooted by perception. You're not trending. You're timed, and timing will always outlast talk. People can cancel contracts, unfollow, or turn their backs, but they can't void what heaven already authorized. Every setback, every false rumor, every closed door only confirms the strength of the seal over your life. You've noticed it, how situations that should have ended you somehow expanded you. That's what happens when your assignment is protected by divine order. The attacks don't stop the plan, they activate it. What they meant for exposure ends up becoming elevation. You were never depending on their approval anyway. The chosen ones operate under a different system, one that doesn't require applause to stay in motion. When your steps are directed by purpose, resistance only refinances you. You don't need everyone to understand the agreement that sustains you. You just need to keep walking like it's still valid because it is. Heaven doesn't cancel what it created simply because earth got uncomfortable. That's why every attempt to discredit you eventually becomes proof that you can't be dethroned. You're not held up by reputation. You're held up by revelation. Your destiny isn't fragile. It's fortified. And no algorithm, gossip, or human opinion can override a spiritual signature. So don't waste energy trying to defend what God already declared. The covenant still stands, and the evidence is you. Still chosen, still standing, still unstoppable. Number 10. Comfort zones are cages for the chosen. The chosen ones were never built to stay where it's safe. The moment you get too comfortable, life starts shaking the ground beneath you. Not because you did something wrong, but because you've outgrown where you are. Comfort feels good. but it slowly traps potential. You can't move mountains while sitting still. The peace you seek doesn't come from silence or stillness. It comes from motion, from stretching into spaces that scare you, from saying yes to assignments that feel bigger than your qualifications. Discomfort isn't a sign of punishment. It's confirmation that you're in transition. You were wired to expand, not to exist in repetition. Every time you settle, something inside you starts to rebel. That's your spirit reminding you that you were meant to influence, not to idle. People might call it restlessness, but it's really recognition. Your soul identifying that your environment no longer matches your evolution. The chosen can't stay stuck for long because stagnation suffocates their purpose. Growth demands movement even when it's uncomfortable, uncertain, or misunderstood. The truth is, your comfort zone feels peaceful because it's predictable. But purpose doesn't live in predictability. It lives in progress. Every great shift in your life came after a season of unease. You had to lose, leave, or leap for the next version of yourself to emerge. God doesn't use comfort to confirm calling. He uses challenge. That's how he stretches capacity and strengthens trust. So when life starts shaking, stop trying to hold everything still. Let the stretch do its work. Every new level demands new adaptability. The discomfort you feel isn't chaos, it's calibration. You're being adjusted to carry more. The chosen can't grow inside cages, even if those cages feel cozy. You weren't built for comfort. You were built for conquest. And every time you move beyond what feels safe, you prove that obedience is greater than ease. Number 11. You don't take over by force. You take over by frequency. True power doesn't scream for attention. It shifts the atmosphere. You don't need to fight for space when your energy already commands it. The chosen ones move differently. They don't rely on aggression or intimidation to be felt. They operate on frequency, an inner vibration of purpose, clarity, and authority that speaks louder than volume ever could. You don't dominate by control. You dominate by alignment. When your character, spirit, and focus are tuned to purpose, everything around you adjusts without confrontation. That's why your presence changes rooms even before you say a word. It's not arrogance, it's resonance. You've cultivated discipline, consistency, and depth in silence. And now those frequencies radiate naturally. People sense the difference because energy never lies. It's the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs validation to confirm power. You're not trying to prove dominance. You're embodying it. That's what separates influence from authority. One demands attention, the other attracts it effortlessly. You've learned that force creates resistance, but frequency creates recognition. You don't need to argue for your place when your vibration already signals ownership. Every goal you've achieved, every battle you've won was less about pushing harder and more about aligning deeper. When your actions, words, and intentions move in harmony, the universe cooperates with your rhythm. That's what real takeover looks like. Not forcing doors open, but walking through the ones that swing wide because your energy matches their key. Power isn't noise. It's presence. It's the stillness that unsettles mediocrity and the calm that carries certainty. When you operate from frequency, you don't have to chase opportunities. You attract them. You don't have to convince anyone. Your consistency does the speaking. The chosen don't overpower, they overtone. And when your frequency is pure, even silence becomes influence. Number 12. The system feared you before it knew you. You were marked as a threat long before you had a platform. The resistance you faced wasn't random. It was recognition. The system could sense your frequency before you ever made a move. It saw your pattern, your potential, your inevitable rise, and reacted with defense mechanisms disguised as rejection. Every closed door wasn't personal. It was protective. Not of you, but of them. Your very existence exposes imbalance. And that's why systems built on illusion move to block you before you can even speak. They felt something different about you. The way you think, the way you question, the way you refuse to blend. Institutions, industries, even individuals are wired to preserve order, and your authenticity threatens that order. You were never meant to fit into their structure. You were sent to reveal its cracks. So when opportunities missed you or rooms didn't open, it wasn't failure. It was confirmation that your influence couldn't be contained there. You're not supposed to enter through the front door. You're supposed to redesign the whole building. Heaven's favor often looks like earthly resistance. When you're chosen, opposition doesn't come because you're weak. It comes because you're inevitable. The system's early rejection was simply proof that it sensed what was coming. It's a spiritual law. Anything not built to handle truth will try to silence it. But the more they tried to suppress you, the more your identity solidified. Pressure only sharpened your edge. Delay only built your depth. They feared you before they knew you. Because destiny gives off a signal that can't be disguised. Your energy disrupts false hierarchies and exposes shallow authority. That's why you were isolated, because power recognizes power even in potential form. The system's resistance wasn't your failure, it was its confession. It knew you were coming to rewrite the rules, not obey them. And that's exactly how heaven confirms threat level through early opposition to inevitable purpose. Number 13, you're not a replacement, you're the reset. You weren't sent to fill someone else's shoes. You were sent to redesign the entire path. You don't continue what's been done. You correct what's been normalized. The chosen ones are not substitutes for the old system. They are the reboot. You came to end cycles, not extend them. That's why life has never allowed you to fit neatly into tradition. You weren't meant to maintain what's broken. You were meant to rebuild it from the ground up with truth, integrity, and clarity as your foundation. You don't inherit dysfunction. You interrupt it. Where others saw legacy, you saw limitation. You realize that not everything handed down is worth holding on to. The world keeps repeating patterns because most people mistake inheritance for instruction. But you saw through that. You understood that repetition without revelation keeps people bound. That's why your journey feels heavier. You're carrying the responsibility of realignment. You're not just making progress for yourself. You're resetting the blueprint for everyone connected to you. Being the reset means losing comfort but gaining clarity. It means walking away from systems that praise tradition but punish transformation. It means being misunderstood by those who worship what you were sent to replace. You don't dismantle things out of rebellion. You do it out of reverence for truth. You understand that some structures have to fall for authenticity to rise, and while others are busy preserving appearances, you're busy birthing accuracy. You're not the next version. You're the new standard. What ended with others begins again through you. The lineage, the mindset, the environment, all of it gets rewritten under your leadership. You were never meant to repeat history. You were meant to reset it. And that's why your presence doesn't just change the atmosphere, it changes the architecture. You're not continuing the story. You're starting a new chapter where truth finally takes its rightful place. Number 14. Dominion is your default. You were never meant to tiptoe through life as if greatness was borrowed. Dominion has always been your natural state. You don't have to apologize for thriving, for leading, for winning. You were built to. When God stamped your identity, He didn't create you to survive systems. He created you to govern them. That's why you've always felt uncomfortable shrinking yourself. Because every time you do, you're working against your original design. You weren't made to blend in with average. You were made to bring alignment where chaos once ruled. Taking over doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you obedient. Dominion isn't about ego. It's about execution. It's the restoration of divine order through your hands, your vision, your presence. The chosen ones don't crave control. They carry correction. You're not here to rule people. You're here to rule the atmosphere, to bring clarity where confusion reigned, to introduce excellence in places that tolerated mediocrity. Your success is not a threat to humility. It's a statement that obedience works. People who misunderstand purpose will try to guilt you into playing small as if peace and power can't coexist. But true peace is born from proper positioning. When you operate in your authority, everything around you finds balance. You're not thriving because of luck. You're thriving because you're finally walking in your rightful rhythm. Dominion is not about having everything. It's about mastering what's yours. You don't have to prove that you belong at the table. The table exists because of your presence. Every space you enter elevates simply because you bring order to it. You don't need to compete for authority. You are authority. And once you understand that, the need to explain yourself disappears. Dominion isn't something you chase. It's something you carry. It's not pride. It's placement. You were never out of line. You were just ahead of time. Conclusion. You've walked through every point not as theory, but as revelation. From understanding that you were never competing but confirming your purpose to realizing that every attack was a curriculum, every closed door a sign of inevitability. You've come to see the truth of who you are. You're not rising. You're remembering. You were built in silence so that your presence could be thunder. You carry dominion as your default, and leadership is never permission. It's possession. Every uncomfortable season, every barrier, every doubt was never against you. It was building you, calibrating your frequency, sharpening your discernment, and preparing you to reset structures, not merely inherit them. This is the life of the chosen. You don't need approval, applause, or affirmation from the world. Your energy, discipline, and depth shift rooms before words do. The spotlight isn't a reward. It's an obligation. Discomfort isn't punishment. It's evidence of evolution. And every time people tried to cancel, block, or diminish you, they only confirmed the covenant that secures your destiny. You are not a replacement, not a backup plan, not a second option. You are the reset, the recalibration, the inevitable force that restores divine order through presence, purpose, and action. Now is the moment to walk fully into it. Own it unapologetically. Step forward knowing that what is yours by design cannot be derailed by circumstance. Every step you take echoes not just your story but the power of alignment, clarity, and divine authority. Your life is proof that the chosen ones don't conform, they redefine. They don't chase, they command. They don't follow, they lead. And when the world finally sees your light, it won't be surprised. It will recognize what it has always been missing. If this message resonated with you and awakened your purpose, make sure you don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel for more content that empowers the chosen. Like this video to fuel your journey. Comment to share your thoughts and breakthroughs. And share it with anyone who needs the reminder that they were built for greatness. Your awakening is not just personal, it's contagious. Step into it fully, because the world is waiting for what only you can bring.